Hello everyone, welcome to a new episode of Superhero Deep Dive. I am your host Jason. I have a very nice episode scheduled for today that actually ended up doing better than I thought it would, so I'm kind of excited for it. Before I get into it, let me give my normal disclaimers and get those out of the way. Now the information is of course pulled from different sources across the internet and may or may not be completely complete, but they do give a really good insight on the current superhero. Also, please feel free to reach out to me via email at b4itall@yahoo.com. You can catch me on Twitter and Instagram under Super Deep Dive. You can also catch me on YouTube under Superhero Deep Dive. And, feel free to comment, like, subscribe, share, help me grow the channel. I would plan on doing a giveaway at 500 subscribers. So I have a ways to go for that, but we can do it with your help. Also, it just really helps me out a lot too. Let's see, what else is there? Yes, you can also catch me every Tuesday and Thursday throughout the day on Outworld Fleet Radio, and their website is www.un-conventional.com/radio. Okay, so this week I am talking about Danielle or Dani Moonstar, also known as Mirage. She's a Native American character, started with New Mutants. She is actually pretty awesome. She was actually a Valkyrie at one point, and we'll talk about that. But yeah, her real name is Danielle Moonstar. She is a teenage Native American, specifically Cheyenne, and she was born in Boulder, Colorado. As with most mutants, Dani's mutant powers manifested during puberty. One of her first manifestations is a vision of her parents' death, killed by a demonic bear. Shortly afterwards, her parents disappear and Dani is taken by her grandfather, Black Eagle. The Hellfire Club attempted to capture her, and in the melee, her grandfather is killed. He had already contacted Professor X to take care of Dani, though, and Xavier, who had been a close friend of Moonstar's father, offers to teach Dani control over her powers. She joins his group of students called the New Mutants, and shortly afterwards becomes the co-leader with the group together with Cannonball. There she develops a deep friendship with Wolfsbane. While with the New Mutants, Moonstar starts to have nightmares again about the Demon Bear, who until then had been kept from her due to Black Eagle's protective spells. Her fear over the entity causes her to contemplate suicide, and one night she attacks the entity and is taken to the hospital. The other New Mutants wait for her in the hospital and are tracked down by the bear. Its magic affect the team, drawing them into another dimension. And the New Mutant magic pierces the demon bear with her magical sword, and it reverts to its original form, William and Peg Lone Star. Dani is actually reunited with her parents at this point, but decides to stay at Xavier's school. They develop an intense rivalry with the Hellions, which is a superpower team of young mutants led by Emma Frost, the White Queen of the Hellfire Club at the time. This rivalry is later somewhat cooled when Danielle bonds with the Hellions leader, Thunderbird. Now, while stranded in the Asgardian realm, Danielle finds a winged horse trapped in mud and barbed wire. She frees the animal and names it Brightwind, not realizing the creature's nature. Now, see, I had a problem with this because I saw a horse stuck in mud one time, and it was the most dramatic moment of my childhood because even though the Neverending Story is always going to be one of my favorite movies, I can't watch that scene. I always have to go to the bathroom or go get a drink of water or something during that scene, and there's no need to pause it. I don't need to see that anymore. So she had to deal with all that. She had to deal with Artax, her own Artax. But selected by Brightwind as her rider, Danielle inadvertently becomes a Valkyrie. This allows Danielle to see premonitions of death. Now, there was a team called the Power Pack, and they call the New Mutants to help against a group of demonic creatures. The Pack's mother is gravely ill, and Danielle fights off death outside her hospital window, gaining the mother a new lease on life. Later, on the trip back home to see her parents, she encounters an old childhood friend. This friend had become racist and mentally ill during the time she was gone. She is also a diabetic, and when he fails to take his medicine, he crashes and dies. I'm not laughing at the fact that he crashed and died, but it's very hard to be, racist, mentally ill, and diabetic all at the same time. That kind of sucks. You have a really bad hand there. Now, with that being said, there is a very, very close friend of the show, near and dear to our hearts, that was diabetic, and unfortunately I don't know if he failed to take his medicine. From what I heard at the time, I believe he did, but I know that he had some kind of episode, crashed and passed away. So Kemp, you are always in our thoughts, even if it's been, I think, 7 years. You've been in our thoughts, so we love you. All right, anyways, back to the matter at hand. She and the other New Mutants attempt to save former teammate Magma from the High Evolutionary. During the fight, Moonstar is thrown into a machine intended to strip mutants of their powers. Instead, the machine, which had been reset by 2 other victims of the Evolutionary's plan, enhances her mutation. It gives her the ability to make the telepathic images manifest in reality. This ability is limited only in that Danielle can only sustain one wish or fear at a time. As a technique for dispelling previous manifestations, she takes up the habit of summoning a spear. Now, at one point, it was also a bow and arrow. So if you see artwork, like if you're watching on YouTube and you see artwork of her with a bow and arrow, and it's kind of an energy, it did manifest as an arrow as well. So, and I think that was the more popular manifestation. But for a time, the team is taken care of by X-Factor, and the group is seemingly settled into SHIP, a sentient flying headquarters. Danielle gets worse and worse headaches, which causes concern for the team, but all of this is interrupted by many things, including X-Factor being drawn away in battle. Hela, the death goddess of Asgard, creates a plan to take over the realm and kill the Allfather Odin, who was in a healing sleep at the time. Hela's magic drives Danielle mad, and she has to be restrained by her friends, allies, and the unseen help of Doctor Strange. The battle is soon moved to Asgard, and the New Mutants, along with the Wolf Prince Himhari and the Valkyrie Krista, who is also known as Mist, who resist Hela, ultimately triumph. Danielle seemingly loses her winged horse Brightwind in the battle, which concludes in Odin's very bedroom. In the end, she chooses to stay behind in Asgard, which angers Hodomatanio, one of her Cheyenne deities, who comes to Asgard itself to bring her back. Danielle ultimately persuades him to leave her to her own devices by promising to eventually return to her tribe. That's actually pretty awesome. Because like in the MCU, there's all these different gods, and they kind of cross over every so often. So this is one of those instances where they're like, nope, we're bringing her back. She's ours. So that's kind of cool. When she does return, she joins S.H.I.E.L.D., unbeknownst to her former friends in X-Force, and infiltrates the Mutant Liberation Front. At this point, she refines her psychic ability so that she can cast psychic arrows. See, this is what we were talking about. Which incapacitates their targets, and rides Darkwind, a dark version of her former steed Brightwind. Because that's just excellent naming. Of course you would do that, right? Why not? Her assignment brings her into many conflicts with old allies, mostly X-Force, which is the continuation of her old team, the New Mutants, and also Excalibur and Moira McTaggart. Despite the front's malicious motives, Dani secretly works against them, working with Cable to turn Feral over to law enforcement authorities for past crimes, sabotaging a mission in China, and harboring a resentment towards members of the front aside from Forearm, whom she develops a genuine friendship with. Her Asgardian white-winged steed Brightwind, who later becomes the black bat-winged Darkwind when Danielle was stripped of her Valkyrie abilities, was then killed by Rainfire. Later, she seeks X-Force's help with a foray into Asgard to help stamp out a takeover attempt by the Dark Elf Malekith. When most of the Mankind Liberation Front is apprehended during Operation Zero Tolerance, Dani is able to extricate herself with X-Force's aid. She joins X-Force for an extensive road trip, and after an encounter with the mysterious Arcadia DeVille, she gains the ability to manipulate quantum energy for a short time, but this power disappears shortly thereafter. She leaves X-Force when they come in contact with Pete Wisdom and take on a more proactive direction. Okay, after a short time as a part-time member of the X-Men, Moonstar becomes a mentor of the New Mutant Squad at the Xavier Institute and the legal guardian of a mutant named Elixir, as well as the Institute's American history teacher. You know, that would actually be pretty cool to have a Native American teach American history, because they're not going to just teach it from one perspective, from like the Anglo-Saxon perspective. They're going to actually teach it from what the book may say, so that and which is chances are going to have an Anglo-Saxon or Judeo-Christian perspective, but it's also going to have her Native American perspective she can draw from too. And you know, there's a good way to compromise with these things. Like, you know, there's three truths. There's your truth, there's my truth, and then there's the actual truth. So if you know both sides, then there's a good way for you to actually get something a little bit more accurate and you know, I guess more compromising to benefit both sides. But I think it's pretty cool. I think that's cool that she becomes the history teacher. Let's see. During this time, she enjoys a reunion with Karma, and then later Wolfsbane. She helps Wolfsbane deal with the traumatic return of her lycanthropic powers. But an ill-thought romantic liaison between Wolfsbane and Elixir drives a deep wedge between the two women. Yeah, because Wolfsbane slept with her son. I mean, yeah. So during the appearance in New Mutants Volume 2 and New X-Men Volume 2, the bulk of Danielle's powers appear to have reverted to their original form. She still retains some of her Valkyrie abilities, which is namely the ability to sense the dead, but they are not as strong as they once were, which would make sense. In the wake of the House of M crossover, the Scarlet Witch causes many mutants to lose their powers. Moonstar is actually one that loses their powers. She's fired by Emma Frost, who feels that as a human she is no longer safe, nor has any right to remain at the school, which really sucks. I really don't like Emma Frost. I just don't. I don't know if I'll ever actually do one on Emma Frost. She is actually a character I just do not like, and I'm pretty sure I haven't already done that, so... I don't know, I'm at like number 78 or 79 on this episode, so I've done a lot. But she does appear in Generation M, number 5, in which Moonstar is revealed that she has not dreamt since M-Day. Which is the day the Scarlet Witch took away everyone's powers. Now, following the events of the Superhuman Civil War, Dani is recruited by the Initiative Program to serve as an instructor to the next generation of superheroes. Alongside her former colleague Beast, she is the person brought in to train Trauma in the use of powers, which, like hers, are fear-based. He does transform into the shape of a demon bear, but Dani is not fazed and talks Trauma into a calmer state. However, due to her belief that Trauma could and should use his powers in a therapeutic nature, Henry Gyrick, who intends to use Trauma as a weapon for the Initiative, is quick to dismiss her from the Camp Hammond once she provides Trauma with enough training in his powers. So there was an ideological difference there, which is kind of cool. I mean, if you look at it, it makes sense because Danielle Moonstar, for as much of a warrior as she is, she has been kind of passive in things. You know, she acts when she needs to, but she's not one to rush into battle or rush into conflict. So cool deal on that. Kudos for that. I agree. Excuse me. Let's see here. Danielle later becomes a member of the latest incarnation of the Hellfire Club, brought together by Sunspot, Blindfold, and Ink. Deceived by Donald Pierce in the guise of Cyclops, and they are put in charge of capturing her. Ink betrays Blindfold and knocks her out and delivers both of them to Donald Pierce. After the young X-Men defeat Pierce, Danielle moves to San Francisco along with the rest of the X-Men and is told by Cyclops that she and Sunspot will train the young X-Men. She persuades an apprehensive Anole to join the young X-Men and move to San Francisco. After receiving an anonymous tip in Colorado about a young mutant endangering a small town, Dani and Zion are sent to investigate and calm the locals. During their mission, Magic, who was teleported off into the future after the events of X-Furnace, she reappears at the X-Men's base in San Francisco. Magic informs Sam and Roberta that Zion and Dani are going to die soon, prompting Sam to assemble a team consisting of himself, Sunspot, Magma, and Magic, which is pretty much the majority of the old New Mutants team, to rescue the pair. Sam and Roberto come across a tied-up and unconscious Zion and in the back of a bar after a brief search, while Magic and Magma are tricked into freeing Legion from a box. Because that's what he does. The personalities in Legion's mind want to kill Dani because she can help Legion get those personalities under control. Legion uses mental projection to try to kill Dani, but she is saved at the last second. Dani punches Sam for his unwillingness to leave her behind because she lacks powers. She acquires guns in order to pursue Legion, and again Sam tries to drive her away, saying guns won't help. Despite Dani defeating Legion, he maintains this attitude and she leaves. Moonstar also assists Cyclops as he prepares his strategy against Norman Osborn's forces. Cyclops sends her to Las Vegas, where she approaches the Norse death goddess Hela for a boon. Hela warns her that the price of the boon is a heavy one, but Dani accepts, requesting a new ride home and a big ol' sword. Later, she arrives for the final battle with her powers as a Valkyrie fully restored, and she takes on Ares, defeating him after a brutal battle. See, I have so much more history with her. It's crazy, but she is playing, integral parts in so many storylines. I love it. Let me see here. Okay, she's going to take over some more X-Men teams. Okay, Hela summons Dani and calls in for her favor, and that's to gather the spirits of the Asgardians that fell in battle with Norman Osborn's forces, and this time, due to the specific nature of her task, her sword cannot touch Asgardian living flesh, but instead proves deadly against the Disir, who have come to feast on the spirits while they are helpless. I think I just saw a tick. Yep, that was a tick that I killed on my paper. Awesome. I wasn't touching it with my hand. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, she and the other New Mutant squad are also captured by Project Purgatory and face the Inferno babies, aged and super-powered versions of the infants captured during the original Inferno event. During the ordeal, Dani was beaten and tortured, but managed to extricate herself from captivity as the New Mutants turned the tables and their captors. And during Legion's pocket reality, Age of X, Dani played a significant role as a tracker and leader of the Moonstar cadre, a team of elite hunters and enforcers, including Cypher, Karma, Magma, Sunspot, and Dust. So that's pretty awesome. Let's see here. I'm trying to skip around some because there's a whole lot here. Okay, let's see. Continuing her mentorship duties at the Institute, while many of its senior staff were battling against the resurrected Omega Red, Moonstar and many of the students ended up contracted to the insane scheming of Mojo, as he had turned all of New York into a lethal televised channel surf. She would feature at the aborted wedding of Catherine Pride and Peter Rasputin, so Shadowcat and Colossus, as the bride left the groom at the altar. Danielle was also present at the recent resurrection of one of the founding 5 X-Men, Jean Grey, as she was resurrected by her link to the Phoenix Force in her old home of Annandale-on-Hudson. Mirage would then succumb to a techno-organic virus infection by her late Technarchy friend Warlock, which could spread and infect the rest of the New Mutants team gathered by the soul-cleaved Shan Koi Man. That was a weird name, but Shan Koi Man, who had sent her to investigate his recent resurgence in Canterbury, Connecticut. It was later revealed that she was contracted by the latter to help find the soul of her brother after he'd split off from her, but ended up infected and becoming Moonlock, creating duplicates of their old friends using his powers to attack the originals with. And I think that's Moonstar and Warlock at that point. They just kind of merged together. Eventually, Karma sold all of her techno-organic infected teammates to the Office of National Emergency's corrupt mutant-hating CO, Robert Callahan, before being infected by a Locke-infected Ilyana. Let's see here, where they've remained in captivity ever since. During her imprisonment, Dani and the other Locke-infested New Mutants were pushed into the service of Director Callahan as cyber-organic mutant hunter-killers. First sending them after Emma Frost after having remade them into techno-organic sentinels in his service. Wow. That's a lot, and that was a very difficult paragraph to read out loud. So, Moonstar, along with all of her old friends, would later be freed from the office by remnants of the X-Men after their climactic battle with a recently repowered Nathaniel Gray, the mutant messiah known as X-Man, resulting in the deaths of their entire team. After their rescue from the ONE organization, Scott Summers began running up a list of potential targets to be taken care of in the wake of X-Men's demise, and mutant xenophobia cranking up to genocidal degrees. Using this opportunity to settle up before retiring as X-Men, they would re-encounter Madrix, which is the Multiple Man, within an underground experiment facility where he was on the hunt for Dark Beast. Let's see here. Okay, let's see here. It looks like Dani, Moonstar, and others had attended Renee, which is Wolfsbane's funeral, and gave a beautiful eulogy for their fallen sister. After the sermon, Kane Marco, who is Juggernaut, voiced concerns as to why it was Cyclops never listed Emma Frost as a potential target. Having finally found the Marauders, the X-Men team immediately went into battle with them. Afterwards, the evil mutants admit they had nothing to do with the murders in the Morlock tunnels, after Jonas summarily execute them in cold blood, and in turn is cut down by Harpoon and with his last breath. Ilyana teleported the X-Men team back to their home base, only to find it in flames. Once they make it outside, they find Mr. Sinister was responsible for their current predicament, setting their secret lounge ablaze in anger for the X-Men killing his Marauders. After hard-fought conflicts, Nathaniel Essex just nonchalantly gives up the fight, wherein the X-Men relocate to another safe haven in Manhattan, the construction of which being ordered by Karma's company as a means to apologize to the team before leaving. Let's see here. I'm sorry, some of these it's a lot to take in, but it's also kind of redundant. Okay, let's see here. Reconnecting with Scott Summers and his scout team. Dani Moonstar was dismayed to hear that Cyclops lost more people while failing in their primary mission to rescue Elixir. Nonetheless, Emma was able to do what she'd set out to do when she made contact with the uncanny mutants, and erasing the very memory of mutation and those who possess powers because of it from the minds of every person on the planet. After the mass mind alteration, Danielle has a chat with Scott about the people they'd lost and all their friends and family they left behind. Scott was insulted to think that Dani believed their cohabitation for survival was really just carefully arranged stepping stones used to enable the more important members of the mutant nation to shelter for their own survival. Emma's plan wasn't perfect, however, as Director Callahan had set up fail-safes in place as he knew the dangers of working with Emma Frost, because Emma Frost cannot be trusted. Danielle was angry to find more techno-organic sentinels attacking the Hellfire Mansion, but offers her aid nonetheless. Even with the Warlocks alternating their programming and Wolverine cutting down the duplicate Callahan in brutal fashion, the TO Sentinels were still rampage along after his command apparatus dies with him. Despite the dire nature of the situation, however, previously thought dead X-Men came out of nowhere and dispatched the Sentinel Squad. The two sides exchange notes while Scott inquires Dani about how and if she knew whether these X-Men were dead, while Moonstar herself admits she knew nothing of this. She knew they would all be reunited one day, like they hopefully will be, with those whom they've lost throughout recent hardships. Let's see here. Okay, as the X-Men were fighting against Dani and her Orphan Maker, Dani Moonstar suddenly received the call to arms when the Valkyries of Odin were called to stand against Malekith and the accursed forces, as he brought his war that torched the realms of the World Tree to Midgard. Without warning, she had Ileana teleport her to where the fighting had begun, while the others were preoccupied with the nanny and her Orphan Maker, and while the X-Men follow behind as magic teleports them to New York City after its fall in search of their teammates. Dani then makes a reappearance in her Valkyrie guise while dispatching some of Malekith's hordes. She explains how when the Dark Elf King declared war on the Earth, Danielle, as an honorary shield maiden, was called to arms by the Allfather to intercept him. But the Valkyrie were killed in the attack, and now Dani is all that is left of the once mighty slain choosers of Asgard. Let's see here. It looks like they stay in New York for a while and help survivors. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, with the sacrifice of Sunspot by destroying a cursed relic inhabiting Ileana's powers, the X-Men were able to use her portals as effective misdirection against the enemy forces. Mirage and Karma combined abilities to throw up a convincing illusion to trick them all into limbo using multiple man's duplicates and the clothes of weary survivors that they are taking care of. Wolfsbane and Magic dispatch Victor with lethal haste, but are at the cost of sending her lover and young son back to hell as they broke the deal made with the Enchantress to live again. Danielle decided to pay last rites to her fallen sisters and her brother as their spirits come to urge her to live on. As Malekith's war begins dying down with the return of Mjolnir to Thor's hand, Mirage was there with Earth's mightiest as the fallen god Loki used Heimdall's sword to cut his way out of Loki's greedy gut, ending the Frost Giant King's life. So that's her history. I'm sorry I skipped around a little bit. If it seems confusing, it is. But she's been playing integral parts, like not just like little support characters. She has been playing integral parts in a lot of the X-Men missions throughout history. So it's kind of awesome. And some of the stuff I skipped was just more detailed paragraphs regarding it that I wrote at the time. From information I had pulled, and it was like, it's you got the gist of the character from this. Like, she's just amazing. But let's talk about her powers. Mirage is a mutant with empathic psi abilities to communicate with animals and people, as well as create three-dimensional images of visual concepts from within their minds of herself and others. Her most developed ability allowed her to manifest people's fears or desires as realistic illusions. Because of the Scarlet Witch's powers and actions, Moonstar lost her mutant abilities but has since regained them after being infected with and then cured by Warlock's transmode virus by Dark Beast. Her ability began as manifesting people's worst nightmares, many times in an uncontrollable fashion against the will of both involved. Soon she gained the ability to control this and to alternately manifest a person's deepest desire, mainly as something or someone the affected person respects. She can also project images of objects of fear or desire from the minds of vertebrate animals and certain insects, but only the animal from which she derives the images, only the animal from which she derives the image will be able to see it. She can even create illusions by channeling residual thought and emotional impressions in an area, such as showing Wolverine a battle scene between Mr. Sinister and unknown assailants, simply by entering the area where the battle had recently taken place. At first, Mirage could not control her image projecting powers and would draw and project images without consciously willing to do so. She has since gained control through training and maturity. Mirage has a quasi-telepathic talent that allows her to form a rapport with various fauna, including her winged horse, Brightwind, primates, canines, lupines, felines, and avians. She can sense their feelings, consciously perceive images in their minds, and even see through their eyes. This enables her to communicate with Wolfsbane in her transitional half-lupine form, or transformed into her full wolf form, and she has also been able to exist peacefully with wild animals. She had for a time the ability to make the telepathic images manifest as psionic energy, becoming tangible entities of solid psionic force. This ability was limited in that Mirage could only sustain one illusion at a time. She often carried around a dream spear in order to destroy previous illusions, and many times her powers caused her to experience sharp, blinding headaches. It sucks that she gets the headaches, but that's pretty awesome to actually make someone's fears like tangible instead of just in their mind, like they can feel it. Like, that's crazy. Mirage has displayed the ability to focus her psionic powers into energy arrows, which could stun an opponent by disrupting their central nervous system or force them to relive a traumatic memory. In later publishings, Moonstar psi arrows have a more physical aspect to them, able to draw blood from those struck with them, and it is currently unknown if this is an effect of her latent materialization abilities or not. And though not a traditional telepath, her mental abilities give her sufficient control to have used Cerebro at a time when it was only usable by telepaths, and she has also exhibited a danger sense. Now, when Mirage rescued Brightwind, she became a Valkyrie, and became endowed with the Valkyrie power to perceive the death or the coming of death. As such, Mirage could perceive a death glow surrounding a person in serious danger of dying, a dark cloud or graphic visual images over people who are in mortal peril, and she could also perceive death incarnate and even do physical battle with death itself to stave off mortality for a short time. She has created an illusionary Cheyenne ghost staff, drawing upon the image in her own mind, and has successfully wielded it as a weapon against death and the Asgardian death goddess Hela. She initially lost these powers due to the fall of Asgard, but has since regained them after making a deal with a reborn Hela. Let's see here. Moonstar appears to have gained a substantial degree of superhuman strength from Hela, as she was able to knock Ares off his feet. Additionally, she wields a powerful supernatural sword, able to discharge energy, bleed Skyfather class divine, capable of slaying spiritual entities, and cuts through curses and enchantments. And it's been confirmed that since her powers come from Hela herself, they are much greater than they were previously, referring to her as a Valkyrie Plus. It has been mentioned that she was specifically designed to take down a god. New Mutants writer Zeb Wells has confirmed that her recent power boost was temporary and that she is depowered again. She still owes her services to Hela as a Valkyrie, and as such, Brightwind remained with Danielle as a reminder of this pact. Danielle still possesses her Valkyrie powers. And they used to only activate when Hela herself wills them to do so. But over time, she learned to call on it at will, again without Hela's consent. So she's got control over Valkyrie powers now. Like, so she was depowered as a mutant, but she is like, she could be one of Asgard's top warriors. So, that seems like a fair trade, right? Alright, let's see here. Due to her training at Xavier's and her time as a Valkyrie in Asgard, and her natural athleticism growing up in the Rocky Mountains, Dani is physically fit and an excellent hand-to-hand combatant. In addition, she is experienced in the use of several simple weapons, especially the bow and arrow, spear, knife and sword, and the knife and sword which she carried as a Valkyrie. She is a skilled equestrian, so she can ride horses very well, and swimmer, a good marksman with a rifle, and an excellent archer. For a brief period of time, Danielle Moonstar's powers were bolstered by Arcadia DeVille in odd yet phenomenal ways. She could tap into the primal mainstream of the universe and channel quantum energy through her natural mutant power, as well as make use of them in other disseparate ways, such as emitting force blasts potent enough to cripple powerful demons, heal and mend with a glancing touch, resist the physiological and psychological invasion by the techno-organic mutant paradigm, see into broader energy spectrums beyond light and energy at a quantum level, and cause the transmogrification effect on the surrounding area at a subatomic level, sense disturbances in energy fields from miles out, as well as alternate them to cancel out and sync with alternate energy forms such as electromagnetic waves, even possessing an undisclosed capacity to manipulate reality on a quantum level. That's pretty amazing. I don't know how they all kind of worked that in, but they did. Maybe it's because she was able to generate illusions, and as an illusion is kind of a reality warping situation. If you want to squint hard enough for it. But yeah, those are her powers too. Let's go into fun facts. Fun facts: Danielle Moonstar appears in the X-Men Evolution episode Ghost of a Chance. And in this incarnation, Danielle's abilities are slightly altered so that they are more of a telepathic induction type, enabling her to project dreams or nightmares directly into her victims' minds. At the time her ability emerged, it was out of control, alienating most people from her home village and driving them away, which in turn left the place into a ghost town. While on a hike in the mountains, Danielle was buried alive in a cave for 2 years, and unable to escape, her body went into suspended animation due to her mutant abilities. When Shadowcat passes nearby, Danielle inadvertently telepathically contacts her, and projects a dream in which Kitty introduced her to the X-Men, which is in fact not really happening. After realizing that Danielle really exists and is in danger, Kitty goes through great lengths in order to rescue her, despite the initial skepticism of her teammates. Even though they have not personally met before the actual rescue, the shared telepathic mind link has made Danielle and Kitty close friends. Blue Hunt was cast to portray Danielle or Dani Moonstar in The New Mutants, written and directed by Josh Boone. Dani is a catalyst for the film's events. She enters a relationship with Renee Sinclair, who is Wolfsbane, and during the climax, it is revealed that the demon bear is a manifestation of her own greatest fear by her powers, as she defeats it by facing the bear, thus dispelling her fear. Pretty decent movie. It's definitely not it's not a Marvel movie. It's kind of a Marvel adjacent. It was it's kind of their take on, and it wasn't even done by Marvel Studios. It's done by, I think, Fox. But it's kind of their take on a superhero horror movie. Not bad. Not bad. It took me a couple times to get through it though. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's not gonna. It probably won't be on anyone's top 10 list, or top 100 list. But let's see here. What else? Danielle Moonstar appears in Marvel Heroes, the game. And in the novelization of X-Men: The Last Stand, Moonstar is recruited as a future X-Men alongside Cannonball, Sage, Gambit, and others. So, those are fun facts. We've gone over her history. We've gone over her powers, her fun facts. What do you guys think of Moonstar? Are you in agreement with me? I mean, she seems like pretty overpowered, but she seems pretty significant in the Marvel universe, right? Like, she's done quite a bit of things, and she's played really important parts and stuff. It's not like, last week when I covered Havoc, he was just there for a lot of it. Like, she is there and in it, even without powers. So I have a lot of love and respect for this character. But let's get into my favorite part. This is the power expansion. This is where I go in and see if they need, if they do well with the movie, live action series, cartoon series. If they're a movie or live action series, who would we cast to play them? What would the storyline be? Do they need a comic series? Do they need, what can we do with it? What can we work with this? And I've covered them all, and I've got heroes that have done animated series, movie ideas, comic series, live action series. I mean, we've run the whole gambit. But I was thinking about this character, and I'm not sure she'd be a great fit for another movie or being in the MCU in any form, really. However, I think I came up with a pretty cool comic storyline that may be adapted later. And it can be a few issues, and set apart from the main universe if it needs to be. But I think it would be really cool to have a war on the astral plane. And if you're not familiar with the astral plane, when you're psychic and you can do things, a lot of them can project themselves onto what's called the astral plane. It's like a dimension in the mind. So if you watch Multiverse of Madness, when Xavier went into Scarlet Witch's mind, and you saw the evil Scarlet Witch, and then you saw Elizabeth Olsen under a bunch of rocks, that in a way could be considered the astral plane. It's just kind of a mental dimension. But I think there could be a war on the astral plane. All the psychic-based characters have to fight each other for whatever reason. So we can have Moonstar, we can have Psylocke, we can have Emma Frost, Jean Grey, Zion, the Cuckoo twin or triplets, or I don't know how many there are, but I mean there's a lot of psychic characters out there. X-Men, we can have Rachel Summers, we can have Cable, we can have all these characters. Strong and weak, it doesn't matter. We can have them all. And I think it could be really cool. Maybe it's a giant plot by the Shadow King, which that character basically lives in the astral plane, and maybe he manipulates events where no one trusts each other and battles against one another until they ultimately find out it was him, and then they go after him. But and I know it sounds cheesy with that, and it does. But the things that we can get from this is we can actually show a wide range of abilities for the characters, like Moonstar's psychic arrows, or her spear versus Psylocke's psychic knife and katana. And what if these two specifically on the astral plane, would they end up having an advantage? Because if they're all on the psychic plane, in a mental realm, the mental powers are gonna be kind of muted at that point. Almost everyone's gonna have a much more level playing field. So would those two have an advantage because of their more combat-based psychic abilities over some of the more passive ones that might not be as effective, like Emma Frost's telepathy, or even Jean Grey's, where, you know, she's going to end up looking for things to move on an astral plane, and that just may not be there, you know. But whereas these guys, they've actually used their mental powers and created weapons out of them, and they're proficient. So, like, theoretically, Jean Grey or Emma Frost or any of these others, they may be able to make weapons, but they may not know how to use them. At least nowhere near the degree of Moonstar and Psylocke, you know. So whereas in the real world, Jean Grey and Emma Frost could, like, wipe the floor with some of these people, this may give Mirage, like, an advantage, you know. And I think the storyline with this, like this, would be a really good way to develop and grow the character's powers, as well as even finding new applications for it. And I'm not just talking about Moonstars, I'm talking about anyone involved, to where they can use in different real world situations. But that's all I could really think of with her. What do you guys think? Like, what do you think? Would you make a movie? If you would, how would you do it? Would it be different from the New Mutants film that came out? Who would you cast? You know, would you try to stick with a Native American actress? You know, would you change up the storyline? I would love to know, because I have a couple people on YouTube that make comments on almost every video with their own input, and their input is amazing. So, you know, I would love to hear what you guys think. Let me know. If you can, you know, watch this on YouTube, comment, like, subscribe. Let me know in the comments what you would do. You can always email me directly at b4itall, so b4itall@yahoo.com. You can send me a message on Twitter or Instagram. I'm listed under Super Deep Dive, and I use the hashtag superherodeepdive. And yeah, like I said, let me know what you guys think. This is going to wrap it up for this one. Next week, I think I am actually covering, I don't know, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 other heroes to cover. And then, I have a debate I am going to be doing with myself, but Silk versus Spider-Gwen. But that, I think, is in the last week of August. So I have a few weeks before then. But yeah, in the meantime, guys, let me know if you have any requests. I'm all open for it. But I'm gonna head out for now. Everyone, I hope you are blessed. I hope you stay blessed. I hope you stay happy. I hope you stay smart. I hope you stay safe. And just remember what I always say: if you're not smart, because I went out of order this time, if you're not smart, don't get caught. I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.